Recently, I've been getting recommended a lot of LEGO speedbuilding videos, and I kinda wanted to try it myself. So I went on LEGO's subreddit and asked how I could get started, and got this comment. Pathetic. So I went on LEGO's website, searched Minecraft, and bought every LEGO Minecraft set they had. Yep, that's how I got in this situation. So we're gonna start the speed build with the LEGO set, The First Adventure, which also I didn't even try to plan that out, but hey, that works. Now this was a time when I didn't really understand what I was in for, because in total we are going to be doing 23 different LEGO sets for a total of 8,219 pieces. The First Adventure alone has 542 pieces, and yeah, this was kind of my first little look on how long this would take me. At first I thought it would definitely be no more than 10 hours. I can't believe how innocent I was back then. But anyways, about the LEGO set, this one is kind of centered around a mine. You can see there's a mine shaft, we made a mine cart with a sheep in it, and some different small details like the lava and the water, which add to the aesthetic. We'll also be making a top area because it would kind of be boring if everything was gray, so we need that little bit of green to make it really pop out as Minecraft. A really cool LEGO set, but for this first one, it took me over an hour as you can see, which just kind of shows the commitment that we're in for. Next, we have the abandoned mine, which is kind of just a smaller version of the First Adventure. This one comes in at 248 pieces, and like with the First Adventure, it has that whole mine aesthetic, but a little bit less characters. It doesn't have like the interactive elements that the First Adventure has, but overall I kind of like it a little bit better just because it comes together really well and makes a really nice looking LEGO set once you're done with it. It also uses this technique where it has two different pieces which you join together at the end, which a lot of these LEGO sets do end up using, and yeah, pretty cool set which only took me about 35 minutes to finish. Next we have the end battle, which is going to come in at 222 pieces. And watching this over again, I kind of regret how I went about this right at the beginning, because I wish I did all the bigger sets right at the start. And that's cause, yeah, I'm going to get very exhausted at the end. I should have saved these easy ones for later. But this one is actually one of my favorite sets, because this is the one where we make the Ender Dragon, which making these characters isn't my favorite thing to do, just because there are a lot of smaller pieces you have to deal with, but the Ender Dragon has such a cool design, and overall I just really love this set. I think it came out great. But for my fourth set, thankfully I decided to do the Modern Treehouse, which is the largest set they have. Now this comes in at 909 pieces, which is absolutely insane, and that's because there are so many different things that are going to be going on. First of all, you'll see I'm making all of the characters, and there are a lot of different characters, beds, things like that we have to make before we start working on the base. Now how this set works is it's going to have two trees in the center, and then we're going to put 4 different tree houses within those. And that means there's going to be a lot of weight, so we have to make a very strong base to make sure that these trees won't just like fall down when we finally put the tree houses on them. But everything needs to be put in perfectly, because if you mess up a tiny thing, the other parts of the trees aren't going to fit right, and it just ruins everything. So a bit of a stressful part, but we get it done, and then we can work on the leaves, which thankfully are a lot easier. All you have to do is stack these on top of each other and make a pretty simple structure. It's not that difficult to do. And that moves us on to the 4 houses. Each of these are pretty similar, they're just going to be a different color, and we're going to put some different stuff that we made earlier in them. Like for one of these, I'm going to be putting a pool in, one of them is going to get a bed, and they all just get a slightly different variation of the other ones, so you can tell them a little bit apart. But overall, I would say this is the easiest part because it is very hard to mess up. But once we put all of those together, we can then slide them onto the trees, put the top leaves back on them, and this is going to be our set. So like usual, this was a great looking set. But after I finished it, it was my first time in a while looking at the clock, and I realized I've already spent over 4 hours. Might have lost my mind just a bit, but don't worry, this definitely won't get worse as we go through the video. Now once I finished up that little break, it was time for the Illager Raid, which comes in at 562 pieces. Now this build can be separated into 4 different distinct parts. First of all, we build this platform which has the water, and it has this little structure which is going to be connected to a tree. The second one we focus on is going to be the farm, and this is also pretty simple. We just place some carrots, some water, it comes out pretty easily. And then finally we focus on the house. We build the base first, put all the different things in it like the bed and crafting table, and then finally work on building the walls and the ceiling. Like usual, we need a lot of structural support to make sure it looks nice and is also strong enough to stay, but those are the easy parts done. Now you can see it's time for the hard part, because now it's time to make the Ravager. And this thing is absolutely gigantic. you'll see right at the start we focus on making its body, and then we have to make 4 legs. Now the thing about these legs is they're all made of very small Legos, which makes them a bit hard to put together, but at least it's 4 of the exact same thing, which we can put on the body and make this beautiful Ravager, who it's also really funny you can make his mouth move up and down. I love that about him. Before then, connecting all of our different parts and putting the different characters where they need to go. I did have this problem where I didn't know where to put this flag, so we kind of just plopped it down. I don't have time to worry about that. And that leads us on to the Coral Reef, which is our first smaller set, which is under 100 pieces. This is only 92, and I barely have enough time to commentate this, but you can see it turns out to be a really nice set. It has that underwater feel, it has the pufferfish and stuff like that. I like this one, even though it's really small. But we don't have too much time to appreciate it, because now it's time to move on to the Jungle Abomination, which is going to be 489 pieces. Now this, in my opinion, is one of the most complicated sets. It starts out pretty simple, we just make the area and the land around it, and this weird arm thing. This is one of the Minecraft Dungeons sets, which I've never played Minecraft Dungeons personally, so I only know so much about it, but this does look like a pretty cool guy. The problem with it is he is gigantic. With any of these characters you kinda saw with the Ravager earlier, they have a ton of tiny pieces, which makes them a bit of a pain to put together. So my general strategy is just to be very careful, make sure we follow the pamphlet exactly, because I really don't want to mess up any of this. It is cool watching this guy slowly come alive though. We start with the body, we slowly add the legs, we focus on making one of the arms before doing the other one, and finally get his head together. And I don't know, Lego time lapses like this are just really satisfying. But that is going to be our end result, and I love this guy. He's actually adorable. Not as adorable as our next build though, the Fox Lodge. This build comes in at 193 pieces, and whenever I played Minecraft in the past, I never thought that foxes were that great of a character, but after making this build, it gave me a whole new appreciation for them. I mean, first of all, it was pretty easy. There were no smaller pieces, which is something that I'm always gonna like. And then second of all, I mean, just look at the fox's face. How could you say that this thing is not adorable? I am now officially a fan of the Minecraft foxes. Such a fan, in fact, that I actually decided to go outside and take my second break of this challenge. I looked at nature, touched some grass, and even decided to do some cloud watch. Oh. This is just kind of sad. So now we're back and it's time for the pig house. Now this one is going to be 490 pieces. And the reason it's so much bigger than something like the Fox Lodge, other than, you know, it just being kind of bigger, is because it has so many small pieces that you have to put together to make a bigger piece. And that's true for most of these sets that have a ton of pieces. It's not that they're gigantic, it's just that they have so many of those small pieces that come together and they do make something pretty cool, so it is worth it. But it's also a lot more work. Yeah, this point in the challenge, I think I realized that Lego never really expected someone to do a challenge like this. Probably kind of obvious by me spending over 9 hours so far. But hey, I haven't gone completely insane yet, and we have another pretty cool house to add to our collection. I really love how this set came together, especially with the water that's coming out of the pig's mouth. It just suits the house really well. And now our next set is going to be the Crafting Box 3.0, which has 564 pieces. At this point in the challenge, I realized that I have way more of these bigger sets left than the smaller sets, so I decided while I wasn't completely exhausted, I might as well focus on everything over 500 pieces and move my way down from there. So right at the beginning you saw that I spent a lot of time on all the different figurines, the trees, stuff like that, and while they weren't that bad in the beginning, I've made so many Minecraft Steves at this point. Yeah, I was very tired of it. But after that, we could focus on some more big objects. We create the land and then we create the house as well. And this house is pretty cool, but I am confused on why this is called the crafting box, because it doesn't really look like a crafting box. Maybe it has some other reason that I don't really understand, but that doesn't really matter at this point. All we have to do is make the land around, give it a water source, and put all of our different figurines on, and there we go. Crafting Box 3.0 is done. Which this one, although it is pretty nice, there's not really too much special about it, so you know, I guess it's alright. And after that, we're moving on to the Sky Tower, which this one has 565 pieces, one more than the Crafting Box 3.0. And the gimmick behind this build is all of the different structures are going to be on clouds. Well, technically the clouds are just a single flat white piece, but hey, I like the idea they were going with. So we have one flat piece of land which has a waterfall, one really large tower which I'm making right now, and a large building which is where most of our pieces are going to go to. And I don't think I really need to explain how we make buildings anymore. I've made enough of them at this point to where you probably get it. But I do really like this building just because the colors they decided to use. The idea you get from this build is it's a cool nighttime build with a bunch of phantoms going and circling the sky. And it really does portray that well. I don't think there's any other build that really looks like this one, and it definitely makes it stand out in a really good way. Though maybe I'm just saying that because the crafting box 3.0 was kind of boring. But hey, we finished it up and it's time for our next break. Yeah, I think I needed one of these. And that leads us on to our next set, the Rabbit Ranch. I decided to take a break from the 500 piece sets, and this one is only 340, so still a pretty big one, but a lot less tiny pieces that I have to deal with. Unfortunately, this is actually our last animal set, so that is kind of sad, but at least we get to see this cuteness one more time. I really did like these animal sets. They kind of were one of the only things keeping me going. I don't know, just seeing an animal house, it just brightens up your day, even if you're making Legos for over 12 hours like a crazy person. But a big part of the set actually wasn't even the rabbit. It was the land around it. We had like this weird hill with some sort of component. My brain wasn't working enough to really understand what was going on anymore, but it was working enough to read some directions, and I got that done. And just look how cute the rabbit is. But after we get done with admiring the rabbit build, we get a pretty cool build. I actually really like this one. And that's because this is supposed to be a training grounds for ninjas, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what those characters are supposed to be. And it's pretty similar to a house build, but the nice thing is it isn't just another house. We make the beginning platform and then we start building up like we would for a house, but instead that's more of just the natural terrain. And I really like the effect that has on this space. Then we build our second layer along with the house, or like dojo, I assume this is supposed to be. And it's a pretty small one, so that makes it even better. Still has a few small pieces, which you expect from pretty much every house, but we were able to put it together pretty quickly. And then once we put that onto the terrain, you can see it's coming out pretty nice. And finally, the finishing touch is the pink roof, which I think really helps differentiate this build from the other ones. And while I came into it not expecting much, I'm happily surprised with how it turned out. There's just a bunch of small details that really make this build come together to me. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting to say that. I think I was too tired to realize it when I was doing this, but now that I'm looking back, it's nice. And now it's time for the Redstone Battle. Now, don't get me wrong. This set is one of the coolest once it's finally completed, but when you're building it and you've been building Legos for 14 hours, this one just kinda gets to ya. You'll see that we built the smallest ever platform in the top left of the screen. It took me like 2 seconds. But then we have to build 2 gigantic creatures. And if you've been listening to me at all, you'll know that creatures are some of the most complicated and the hardest things to build. And these ones especially are, because there are a lot of different moving parts you have to make sure work. And if there is legitimately a single thing wrong, it's possible that you might have to get rid of a good amount of your work just so you can fix that one small issue. But thankfully, I didn't run into too many problems this time. You'll see our bigger guy right at the bottom. He has his legs, he has his first arm, we can finish out his other arm, and then he comes together looking great. I also love moving around his hand. And then you have his other boy, they're looking good together. And finally, for the first time in a bit, I looked up at my real life clock and it was 2:28 in the morning. Yeah, it was time for me to have another little break. And with that, we finished all of the really large sets, so now it's time for more of the medium-sized ones. This is going to be the horse stable, which is 241 pieces. And when I first saw this set, I realized we haven't had any horses in this entire video before this, which is kind of crazy because there have been so many pigs and sheeps and things like that. But anyways, the set is pretty simple. It's not too big. All you have to do is make the horse stables, make the horses, and make this cool skeleton horse with a skeleton on top of it. So overall, just a really nice set. Then we have probably the coolest looking set in the bunch, the Ruined Portal with 316 pieces. And I love this set so much because of how they designed it. They have the overworld on the right side, the nether on the left side, and a nether portal in between. In my opinion, the colors contrast really well, and it turns out amazing, but we still have a little bit until we get there. Now, once we get done with the base, it's time to put the nether portal in. But the annoying thing about this set is it's a bit scary to actually do that. For some reason, I felt like I was gonna break something, but maybe that was just the 16 hours of making Lego sets talking. Anyways, another one done, and I told you it was gorgeous. But for our next set, we're moving completely into the nether as we're doing the warped forest, which has 287 47 pieces. I'm also pretty sure that this is our only build that is completely in the nether, so that means I really like it because it's different from everything else we have. It's also pretty nice that it has no buildings because I'm kinda sick of making those at this point. It's a nice and simple build, but it looks exactly like it came out of Minecraft. Like, I could literally see this in the game. So overall, a pretty big fan of this one, which says a lot because I was 17 hours in at this point. Don't worry me, only 6 left. And to begin those final 6 builds, we're going into the mushroom house. Yeah, it's a house that looks like a mushroom. But as soon as we started this build, my cat jumped on my table and demanded some pets. Yeah, she wasn't the biggest fan of this Lego video. She also accidentally kicked one of the Legos off of my table, so I had to go up and get it. A little bit of a time loss, but at least it was a cute one. So I promised her I would take one more break after the set was done and I could play with her for a bit. Anyways, back to the mushroom house. Of course, we have to start with making all the little figurines, but thankfully there weren't that many for this one. And then we start working on the base of the house. It's gonna be like pretty much any other house, but this time it's all mushroom patterns, which I guess makes it a little bit more interesting, but yeah, at this point houses just make me feel nothing. But thankfully I got it done pretty fast, and that meant I could give my kitty the attention she deserved. Yeah, this one is just adorable. And now here we are, the final 5 sets. And to start the final 5, we're going with the Guardian Battle, which is going to be 255 pieces. And while there is a small platform that we are going to have to build, the big attractions from this set are the Guardian, the Elder Guardian, and the Glow Squid. Which, yay, more complicated creatures to make. But at least these ones are small, which is what I really needed at this point, cause yeah, my mind was really struggling. But we don't have too many ocean sets, and it turned out pretty well, so I like it. But I like the next set even more because it's time for the bee farm. This build is going to be 238 pieces, and I love it because it centers around bees. There's even a person in a full bee suit, and they actually don't look half bad. And the most interesting part of the set is what we're building right now. We have some sort of pulley system, but instead of using a material like redstone, we attach a bunch of angry bees to a pole and have them be the ones who make it move. Yeah, Lego sets are kind of cruel. So overall, a really cool looking set and not too bad to build. So now it's time for our last medium-sized set, the trading post. This one is 201 pieces, and yeah, I'm not gonna have time to explain too much in this set, but it's pretty obvious we got a trader, he's got his 2 camels here, and we're in the desert. Yep, that about sums it up. So we'll make 2 different platforms, each with their own stuff on them, before connecting them and adding all of our characters. And now with the last medium one done, there are only 2 more small ones. So here they are, the Taiga Adventure and the Creeper Ambush, coming in at 74 and 72 pieces respectively. These are the 2 smallest sets in all of Lego Minecraft, and I'm pretty sure they were only like $10 each, so honestly, not too bad of a deal. The one thing I really like about the Creeper Ambush is the red creeper. I think he looks really cool. And then the Taiga Adventure is just kind of plain, but that might be because I've spent the last 19 hours making gigantic sets, so it's kind of hard to impress me at this point. Anyways, from here, I ran over to my computer and ended off time with a 19:43:32. So here's what all 23 sets look like together, and now there's only one last thing I need to do.